Hi, this is talking about Unit 9. So, basically, Unit 9, it focuses on like the 60s and like civil rights movement. Obviously, like a major one, like segregation, like unspoken segregation and written like law segregation. And also, like it talks about like the Kennedys and Johnson and his contribution to the U.S., and then it talks about Vietnam, which we spent a lot of time talking about in class. Then it leads up to like movements such as like the feminism movement and all these great things that happened during the time period. Okay, so like Brown versus Board, which was basically they wanted like equal rights in schools and stuff like that. The freedom rides were like, which is really cool, like just going against like Rosa Parks, going sitting in the front of the bus and like drinking from the water fountains, and they were just disobeying every law of segregation. They would have sit-ins. They'd have this black power, which was like this unity of people trying to work for this one cause, such as like Thurgood Marshall and Martin Luther King Jr. And like even to the smallest of people, like not every person counts. Like James Meredith, who was like this veteran who like applied to University of Mississippi, and he wanted to attend here, and one of the great contributors of how they went to court about this, one of the great contributors was the Medgar Evers, and they'd help out like even like the Black Panthers helped like tremendously, even though their tactics weren't the most correct way of going about like violence and stuff like that, but they had so much passion in them that they wanted people to notice them and not have these peaceful Gandhi like ways about them, because they felt like the only way to achieve it is through force. Another great person is Malcolm X. He just encompassed. The reason why he put the X at the end of his name is because of his African name that he was stripped of, his like slave name that was given to him, and he's not really known for what he's done, but he's a great contributor. Like, everyone talks about Martin Luther King, and obviously he's one of the best there is, but there's more to him than just Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King. There's more people that contributed to this great movement. The Voting Rights Act, finally, after like the walks they had, the Montgomery boycott with the buses and the walks, I don't know what they did. They walked to like some odd miles to like protest against people holding them down, and through the Voting Rights Act they had the right to vote, but later they had where is it at? They actually get the privileges of civil rights. They had their civil rights given to them later, I think like 64. Okay, so moving on to Kennedy and his part in his part of this time period. He was a young guy, and he went against Nixon, and he won because I think he was good. He tried his best, like Equal Pay Act, which was like, just because you're doing the same job, male and female, you should be paid the same. Which even today, like you pointed out that it's not necessarily still in effect, but it was a step forward. It had flaws, but it was a step forward to equality overall. The space race, obviously, which was like who would get into space first, Russia or us? Who would get on the moon first? Who's big macho country, and blah blah blah. he deficit spending. He finally gave into that, which was the more that you borrow from somewhere, that the more the government would spend. And it's just like kind of like what the Republicans think now. The more you spend, the more the economy flows. Oh, the Cuban Missile Crisis obviously is a really big part of his term. Well, basically, Russia had like missiles in Cuba, like 13 missiles in Cuba, and they're all pointed at the U.S. We had missiles in Turkey, waiting for whichever side to respond first. If that were to, he obviously kept his cool, Kennedy. If he were to actually attack, God knows what would have happened to us. God knows what would have happened to this world. Nuclear warfare, World War III to the max. But yeah. Okay, and then he unfortunately gets assassinated, which brings upon Johnson. He was also a great president too. Like he had the war of poverty, and then which was basically he funded money to like schools and like the poor and stuff like that. And he made Medicare and Medicaid, which was like both for money supplying for like people who can't afford like proper treatment, or people who are old and like can't afford it because they're not working. The Warren Court was like Warren was the supreme like court justice guy, and he was just advocating civil rights and civil movements and everything like that. Oh, Fidel Castro, which was back to the Cuban Missile Crisis. He is also a communist. That's why him and Russia got along. Peace Corps, obviously, like that emerged in like Africa and like trying to bring up peace and just trying to make the world better. Okay. Johnson had this theory of they had this theory of the domino theory, which was like if one country turns communist, the other countries around it are gonna turn communist. So that's how they got involved in the Vietnam War, which was like, well, the France had been in that war for like a decade beforehand, trying to, because they were taking over. They wanted to like control Vietnam. They were, and then they rebelled and they turned communist, and we decided to help France, but they pulled out, and we got stuck in this communist battle, in this rough terrain, and it was just a terrible decision to even go there. It wasn't any of our business, but the U.S. likes to get into other people's business. Yeah, so they had the domino theory, which made us join that. The Tet Offensive, which was like when we got surrounded, even though it was like on that holiday, they thought it was going to be like a peace offering that day, but like they got surrounded by, like the Marines got surrounded, and it was like they're completely outnumbered. The Pentagon Papers came out, and they revealed like what the government was hiding about the Vietnam War and like their roles in the Vietnam War, basically. Oh yeah, and then Johnson was not liked because he got into this war, so obviously when re-election came around, he didn't win, and he just knew that like everyone didn't like him after that. I mean, he started off good, but then he ended up bad. Then Robert Kennedy tried to get into office. That didn't work. He failed. Then Nixon comes in with Henry Kissinger, and they were like two buddies, and they were like, during this time it was like counterculture, like hippies and stuff like that, and then like the generation gap, which was like when the old like felt like they couldn't connect to their kids because they grew up in this like restricted environment while their kids are growing up and like they don't care and they're carefree and stuff like that. like many like movements came out, like the feminist movement, which was like we want complete equality. I know, like, what was that? Where like they also wanted like immigrants equality, like Cesar Chavez and all that. They wanted like complete equality between everything, and like yeah, and then Nixon was loved until like the Watergate scandal, and he obviously resigned because of his scandal. And the Camp David Accords also came out during this time, which was like is like trying to keep peace with the Israel and like all the African and Middle East. I don't really particularly remember, but yeah, and then Jimmy Carter. Then that's when he rose to become president. But yeah, I like this section honestly. But I'll see you later.